Welcome to the Team Teach podcast. I'm Clare, and in each episode you'll find me talking with an expert guest to learn more about behaviour. We squeeze a lot into each episode. You'll listen to the latest thinking in behaviour, continue your professional development with our book recommendation, and then I'll send you away with 3 practical tips you can use in your setting. I'm joined today by Dave Smallwood. Dave is a Principal Team Teach trainer and Company Director of Sense Training and Consultancy. He's worked in special schools for both the local authority and for the National Autistic Society. As a staff development coordinator for the National Autistic Society, he's also delivered and developed training in autism, equality, diversity and rights. Dave is also an occasional co-host of the Team Teach podcast. And today, Dave and I are talking about supporting individuals on extracurricular trips. Enjoy the episode. Hi, Dave. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Claire. How are you?
I am very well. Well, we've been talking sneakily off air about the topic and shared some horror stories already, but we're talking about behaviour challenges on extracurricular trips or field trips, those kind of things, and how we can support behaviour in those environments. Before we delve into the topic, my esteemed co-host, will you just tell the listeners a very short, because I know that you can talk, but a very short intro to who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I am a principal tutor for Team Teach. I deliver Team Teach courses. That's most of my work at the moment. My background is working with young people with autism. I spent a long time working for the National Autistic Society many years ago. I was a staff development coordinator for the National Autistic Society. And also I spent a long time working in a special school in West London, quite a large one. I was the behaviour lead there. And that's really my background, just working in schools, residential schools, mostly with young people with autism.
Thank you. I always want to call you David on the podcast, but you do prefer Dave. I get too formal. And I've been hosting the Team Teach podcast for a while now. Just a really quick intro to me, Claire Edmondson, principal Team Teach tutor like Dave. My background's quite varied. I've worked in mental health services, education, including PRU and SEM. And like Dave, I spent some time specialising in working with individuals on the autistic spectrum and various other bits and bobs that I'm sure I will thread in as we go through the podcast. So, trips, extracurricular, behaviour challenges. What do you wish you knew then that you know now, Dave?
I think with trips, it's all about that. I wish I'd known that then. Every time you come back from a trip, and that's what you say to yourself. Oh, I wish I'd known that before I'd gone there.
It's true.
It's all hindsight, isn't it? Planning, really. I think had I have been, when I first started out, more aware of the planning and risk assessments and been a bit more robust with it, shall we say, then I think it might have gone a bit better. But there's always those things, isn't there? Those little things that pop up that you can't predict, and they're the difficult ones. But then it goes back to planning again, and we need to revisit our plans, don't we, and risk assessments and update them. So planning is everything for me.
So you wish you were better at paperwork?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Interesting.
I do like a risk assessment, though.
You do like a risk assessment, that's true. It's a tough one, isn't it? I think my hindsight's a little bit different. Dave knows me pretty well and knows I'm quite a worrier, but I think running trips, I actually haven't led a huge amount of trips, I think because of my worry that something's going to go wrong. But the ones that I did lead and have led, I've spent weeks, months beforehand panicking, over preparing, overdoing the paperwork. And actually on one of the trips that I did, there's absolutely no way I could have prepped for the difficult thing that happened and the challenges that we faced. And we were fine. And we dealt with it. And we did okay in the moment, making sure that everyone was okay. So I think for me, I know slightly different from your kind of version of preparation, is sort of believing that it will be okay. And actually that preparation is really key, but you still have to respond, I suppose, in the moment as well. So I kind of wish I knew that it would be okay on trips, even if something goes wrong.
Yeah, I think with me though, I can really see that in you. I can see you panicking about it for weeks. I was on the flip side of it though. I was always, oh no, it'll be fine. I used to get told, oh, you can't take that one out, you can't take him, you can't take her.
Yeah.
And I say, oh, they'll be fine, they'll be fine. So I never did panic. And I think we've got to strike a balance between the two, haven't we?
Yeah.
But that preparation, that thinking about it loads, you say you can't prepare for what might happen because it's unforeseen. The bad thing that happened, I could never have prepared for that. But just preparing yourself in the way that you did, yeah, you know, I like a little analogy, don't you?
Yeah.
Job interviews. If you've ever been for a job interview, you panic about it and you worry about it loads and loads and loads. And if you write yourself out loads of questions that they may ask you and prepare yourself like that, even if they don't ask you the specific questions, you've still prepared for them. Your mind's still prepared for what's coming to you. And I think that's what happens on trips, isn't it? You might not be able to prepare for exactly what happens, but in preparing for the foreseeable risks, then you're preparing your brain to respond better in the moment.
You are, because you're going through the process, I suppose, is what you're saying, that process of analysing the things that could happen is setting ourselves up to be able to respond. And I know, well, I think we did an episode quite recently about the difference between reacting and responding. But I think when we're taking individuals off-site that can be risky, it is so imperative that we have the ability to respond in the moment. And that really is down to our preparation, I think. And I mean, maybe I can over prepare for trips and get myself knotted into loads of worry. But I just couldn't imagine taking individuals, particularly ones that have quite a high risk assessment for maybe unsafe behaviours. I just couldn't imagine being a bit gung-ho about it. But then the flip side to extracurricular trips and field trips is that something unforeseen can happen. And I think that can be really difficult in the moment. Did you know that you can become a trainer and deliver Team Teach training to staff within your own organisation? Have the flexibility to choose when, where and who you deliver your training to throughout the year. Find out more about this cost-effective option on the Team Teach website. Have you got any examples of that, Dave, when some, maybe perhaps how you've coped with something a bit unforeseen?
Yes.
Ones that you can share on the podcast.
I've got quite a few, and you do have to respond in the moment. We had to leave Tate Modern once because it was just too overwhelming for the young people that we took there, and we just had to make the decision, okay, well, this isn't right for them, we need to leave. There was another time we went to the Paralympics in 2012, and we got in, and one young man decided to leave as soon as he got in, and he went, his parents were there, his mum was with him, and they both left, and we couldn't find them, and they got back through the barriers, but we were told, once you're in, you can't leave, and if you leave, you can't come back in. But we managed to get him back in. But yeah, I mean, you do have to think on your feet. Planning is part of it, but staying calm. You start preparing yourself and just staying calm yourself. If you start to panic, then it's all going to go wrong, isn't it?
Well, it is, and I'm just thinking about that thread really of staying calm, that I find it is so much harder to keep myself in a calm state when there's other people around and I feel that there are judging eyes on me and how I'm managing or supporting that situation. I think in particular that was most difficult when I worked in an autism provision, and some of the kids had different tics and different things that they might sort of shout out, different behaviours. And actually it was so hard to keep myself in the right state when I'm worrying about what society is making of these young people in this case. And also, I guess what we didn't have is that we weren't easily identifiable as working with individuals with special needs. So to the public, I'm not sure what they knew was happening, and on occasions things could get fairly risky. All trained in Team Teach, we might have to escort someone, take someone really safely back to school as a last resort if something was particularly risky. But it's so hard when you've got that public eye on you, and you feel a bit judged by what's going on. I think it makes it that bit harder.
I think that's only natural as a human being. We all think that, don't we? We all worry about what other people might be thinking. But I found mostly people are human beings, and they do understand. It doesn't take much. I know we do go out and you hear about it a lot, especially on the courses that we deliver. Sometimes members of the public with the best intentions want to help. They don't understand that we're escorting a young person away from a potentially risky situation, and we're fully trained in Team Teach and we do know what we're doing. But they don't see it necessarily that way. So there are those instances where it can get difficult, but mostly members of the public are just human beings, and they are very nice. And it's just something within us. But it does come up a lot though, Claire. What did you do about it with regards to identifying who you were and that you were a member of staff possibly supporting a young person?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. So we didn't really feel, at the time when the crisis is going on, you just have to focus on the young person and keep them safe. So there wasn't really an opportunity to, have a chat with the member of public at that time. It was about keeping safe, but we did put things in afterwards. So we actually decided, and not everyone will agree that this is the best course of action, but we already had lanyards on anyway, but we had a lanyard on that had just a card that we could give to someone to explain who we are and what we were doing. And not everyone would agree that that is the best course of action, but for us that felt like a step that was helpful. And we had a uniform in that service that had a very small emblem on the front. But what we felt as staff, that it was really helpful to have the name of the school on the back. So it was just really clear that we were on a school trip as well. So we just put in a couple of measures to help support us, I think, as staff members in that moment. And that goes back to that idea, really, that it is about preparation, but it's also about reflection when things perhaps go wrong, and being flexible in our approach so we can make some changes to try and reduce risk in the future. So there are a couple of things that we did that, it might not be right for every service, but if we can keep ourselves calm as the member of staff, which was the goal of having the cards or having something to identify ourselves, it hopefully then calms, the individual that you're supporting.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's a good way of doing it. We always had cards that we'd hand out. And,
yeah.
This is a member of staff supporting an individual that has autism. If you have any questions, please contact this number below. So the member of the public could phone this tool or the setting that I was working in at the time. I think that's a really good way to do it. It helps you stay calm, and it gives them a little bit of information. but you can still concentrate on what it is you're doing. And I like the uniform idea. That's quite good. I mean, we don't want to always be walking around in uniform necessarily, but I think in those instances it is quite good, really, because it does inform people, doesn't it, that you are a member of staff. But like you say, it's not the only way, but it's certainly a good way, I think.
It is, and the flip side, I suppose, of uniform is that if someone was working in a residential care service, for example, having like a uniform on and almost dehumanizing the individual, like, I'm a member of staff, you know, you're in my home with me, like, may not be the approach that we want in that service. So I think it's kind of got to be bespoke and individual to the service that it's in and what's right for them. And it worked for us, I suppose, in that instance. I think one thing I just wanted to pick your brains with, I mean, this might be your favorite question ever, is about how we do those risk assessments. You talked about an analogy of, you know, writing out questions like a job interview, but how do we do those risk assessments and prepare for some of these extracurricular activities?
We can only risk assess for events that are foreseeable, the predictable things. You can't have a risk assessment for absolutely everything. You'll be there forever. It's those things that are predictable, and being prepared for those. And it's not about eliminating risk. I said earlier about taking young people out, and often people would say to me, well, you can't take him, you can't take her. They drop to the floor. If they see a dog, they'll start chasing the dog. They'll run away. They might try and go for a member of the public, or might scream really loudly on the bus. And all these things, it doesn't mean we can't take them out. It just means that we have to be aware of the possible risks that are going to be there. And what are we going to do in that eventuality? What are we going to do if we see a dog? Maybe we have that individual walking with a member of staff further to the back as we're walking down the street, with somebody ahead that can see the dogs. And then a signal can come from further ahead so we can cross the road, or we can distract in some way. It's foreseeing those risks. Now, I mean, a lot of young people, we can foresee certain levels of risk and eventualities. What we can't assess for is those unpredictable things, the things that we don't know, the things that we haven't seen before. Then we have to respond in the best way we can, and our priority is to keep people safe. So we do whatever we need to do to keep people safe. That's our priority. Somebody behaving in a way that's inappropriate, or in a way that I don't like, that's not a risk. What we have to do when we're out is manage risk. So we calm that situation down the best we can. We keep the people safe. And when we get back, then we revisit that risk assessment, and then we start putting a plan in place. What happens next time? It should never be, I don't think, we can never take this individual out anymore. It's, how can we take this individual out? This has happened. So what can we do to reduce the risk and the likelihood of it happening next time?
I'm just a bit conscious of time, Dave. So maybe we should do our top tips.
Planning and preparation. That's my top tip. You can't plan for every eventuality, but if you plan well enough, then you're already preparing your own mind for when those things do crop up.
And I was thinking, leading back to your last point around that communication, so making sure that the plan is communicated to everyone, be that students, if appropriate, volunteers, support staff, whoever is involved in that trip, that there is really clear communication around it. And then lastly, I know this is something I bang on about so much when I'm doing team teach training, but risk assessment. And Dave's touched upon it with his top tip around preparation, but having that process of doing a really thorough and decent risk assessment is absolutely key for our extracurricular activities. And that helps us to be able to keep everyone safe on the trips. We've done it, Dave. Extracurricular trips, tick, solved everyone's problems, hopefully.
Yeah. With the answers that nobody likes.
Exactly, yeah.
Paperwork,
More hard work.
planning, preparation, risk assessment.
Our favourite word.
So key.
It is. But thank you so much, Dave, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you, Claire. Bye.
You've been listening to the Team Teach podcast. It's been great to have you here with us as we discuss behaviour, communication, and the ways we can best support those in our care. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.